Hi everyone, Speedy here and welcome back to Planet Zoo. Getting back into our series today, and there's a few things been happening off camera since the last time we checked in. The first is that mesh fence replacing the wooden fence in the front of the giraffe exhibit. We've also upped the population of our lemur exhibit, really bringing this lemur island to life, and you can really see it is bustling with energy. We've moved the staff path just over there to join up. And finally, the major event here is the introduction of this lake out the back of the lion exhibit. What are we going to do with it? Well, you'll have to wait and see on this episode. But as you might have seen at the start, we're going to be building a big water-based exhibit today. So let's get into it. So what we're going to be doing here is building an enclosure for our hippos, and this is definitely the most ambitious project that I have gone for so far. I've found what I really want to do with this series is sort of show off my own development as a Planet Zoo creator, because obviously I'm still pretty raw at the game. A lot of skills and building techniques that I am yet to master. So each episode we're going to try something a little bit different, and that's what I've really gone for here today with the hippo exhibit. So you see, first thing we're doing here, raising up a heap of the terrain, because the goal here is to create a 2-level enclosure essentially, with the water, the subterranean level I guess, at ground level for our visitors viewing, and coming up this slope to be able to view the exhibit from above. So working on this side here, which does actually end up being changed, but that is our first step here, getting this path around the exhibit, working out where it's going to want to go. The pathing system, of course, up to its usual tricks, needing a bit thicker there. So as I was saying, with the development of this series, what will hopefully be able to happen is when we revisit some of the original exhibits later on down this series, we'll be able to really contrast with the further along exhibits, sort of seeing how I have developed as a player in Planet Zoo, seeing what techniques and skills I've really developed. Now, so onto our hippo exhibit. The main feature, of course, required was an underwater viewing platform, and I've got that section set up right along here next to the lake that I was talking about at the start, and that's something that we're hopefully going to be able to really tie in together later down the line. Just here trying to work out what to do with the gates. Going for just one concrete wall here. The other thing I really wanted to incorporate was a hard shelter and sort of backstage area. You see that a lot of times in real zoos, where the hard shelter and the keeper area is sort of congregated together. So the keepers will enter into the hard shelter, and within there is a divide between the keeper area and the animal area. So that is what we were also trying to incorporate into this particular habitat. Here, just testing out the water level, seeing how high up we could get it, playing around, because I wanted this path to really, I wanted this right next to the waterfall, as close as I could get it without the path sort of being inaccessible. And so I think we've done quite a nice job there, and then bringing the glass right up to the path. The next step, of course, with our hippos is they can't just dive straight into the water, so working on a slope. This is very finicky with the traversable area, and it was then I decided that the water was maybe a little bit too deep, so just bringing it up. It probably still is too deep. One thing I've really noticed is that my ability to sort of scale things correctly and develop a zoo that is realistically life-sized in comparison to the guests, not something I'm particularly good at this point in time, but that's all right. These are big, grand exhibits for animals. So now here we're getting into this backstage area, as I was talking about, using the stone bricks, which I really fit the vibe quite well. Realized immediately that this was not big enough, so expanded it out. So the idea here is you can see where the null barrier is. So outside of the enclosure is going to be like a little backstage area with a keeper hut and maybe some extra detailing later along the line. And then the second area is going to be the hippo sleeping quarters. So it all sort of blends in together as one building. So just popping in the path there for the staff so that they can walk in this backstage area, and then working out some pathing to cover up the staff path, because we really want this to feel like its own building. And I just had to raise it a tiny bit to obstruct that staff path, basically. Then we're able to get in the keeper building, bring that through to the wall so that we get the exhibit perfect there, and then just continuing to work on the rest of this side as well. So I have been watching quite a few Planet Zoo videos, and this kind of idea of backstage is something that I really wanted to try from having watched a few of those. So, I guess that's kind of what a lot of this series is going to be, is me picking up techniques and things and then trying them out for myself, basically. So it's sort of a journey in me learning how to play this game and build enclosures that I'm really proud of and developing my skill. So if you like the videos, if you subscribe and follow along, you will get to watch me, hopefully, become better at this game. So I guess, yeah, that is the story of this series now. Can't find the piece I'm looking for. I was having a lot of trouble with this building, I think because I'd moved it, but the pieces just didn't want to come in at the same height, and then when you have the grid on 0, it gets a bit finicky. I'm trying to line up the door here as well, and then deciding what to do above the door in that weird little gap. Eventually just going with some mesh, which is a little bit boring, but it works. Covering up this keeper hut now. I wanted to get a staff room in there so that there's sort of like here's again what I was talking about with the grid pieces, but paths are messy. Let's not mess around with it too much. Just adding a door here now on the exterior. And then I just thought it looked a bit plain, so something around it as well, so that it stands out a bit more. And I think it comes out quite nicely for a door with some bricks around it. And then going for the roof, and I wanted a bit of an overhang. The roof comes out okay. It probably is a little bit under detailed, I guess you would say. So that's maybe something for me to work on in a future episode. Again, the grid. It was really causing me havoc. But yeah, the roof, I tried something different. I don't know if I like it. You'll see a bit later. I won't try and spoil too much what's going on, but maybe just something for me to look at another day. All right, well, the hippo is in, and now it is time to start working on the habitat itself. We've got the shelter in, we've got the space. Time for that rock and foliage work. Well, at least it would be time for that rock and foliage work if I hadn't decided to completely change the entirety of this layout. So once I've finished getting rid of all the grass from underwater here, I have a look at this and I decide that there is not enough underwater viewing areas. So I did this all off camera because it was nasty work. But we have brought the path down here all the way down so that there's this big window here for guest viewing. And so now I have to move this ramp towards the end here. And I am really happy with this decision, essentially, because it makes the exhibit so much better, so much more underwater viewing. The only underwater viewing we had was down by the lake at the other end, and the hippos weren't really going down there either, so it just wasn't creating that right vibe for the guests. So I'm happy with the decision to basically triple the amount of viewing available. Just trying to kind of make this look a little bit more natural, not just like a big raised plateau in the middle of nowhere, but that is still kind of what it looks like at this stage. Painting along there. All right, and now time to work on the underwater viewing sections. And by that, of course, I mean viewing sections to view underwater, not sections that themselves are underwater. The other thing I didn't do, which I should go back and do, is some viewing bubbles. You know, the things you can put into the exhibit and the guests look up through them and they can be inside the exhibit looking in. And a couple of those underwater I think would be very good. I just have to work out somewhere to put them. So now we're just bringing this area here to life, wanting to cover up and sort of frame the glass as well. So we go with the wood here because I think that looks quite nice along the top here. And then these panels. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm really quite happy with how that all looks. This glass section here I wanted to cover up. I didn't actually want it, so we're going in with some rocks as well to match the other end. Yeah, I think it's coming together. I quite like this section of the hippo viewing. I think it definitely needs some more detailing, but for now, it's quite nice. And then down at the other end, here by the lake, we're going with a stone look, just for something a little bit different. This was finicky to line up, but we eventually got there. And then the other problem was that because this went off at an angle, I had to build like 2 separate buildings. And so I also haven't done anything. I didn't do these along the top. I put some rocks along the top. That was part of an idea that didn't quite come to fruition. I think we're going to do something with that next time. But for now, it just remains a little bit under detail. But that's all right, because as I said, detailing and habitat building, the plan is to keep those separate so that people who like all those extra little details can watch those, and people who are just here to watch me try and build exhibits can watch me try and build exhibits. So now going with the roof. I was trying not to make it just look like every other roof I've built, but it kind of did with the slate to start with, and then I was going to do eventually, essentially exactly what the roof of the staff building down on the main street ended up. And then I decided I'd just go with like a second level of flat. I put these, they don't really fit the vibe, but I actually quite like these pieces around the edge and adding a bit of detail. I really should have done that as well around the bottom layer, like down there where I was playing around the drain pipes, and then I just kind of left it, and so it looks a bit underdone. But I think if I add that next time, it will be all right. Okay, so now we've got the hard shelter. Now we've got the underwater viewing area. Now we are almost up to foliage work, but now I was going to make a little fence for along here. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just didn't want to use the same wall piece that I've used for both the other things. So I wanted to do something different. I was playing around with this stone or painted brick with these breeze block columns on each end, and then this wooden plank on top. And I was struggling to line up the wooden plank. And then I didn't realize, I didn't think I liked the painted brick. So I was like, well, I'll scrap the painted brick and do something different. It was a whole thing. It took me way too long on something that I didn't even really want or like. And then eventually I was like, no, I hate the painted brick. So I deleted it. And then I just brought the wooden pieces down. And we end up with that, which I don't hate. I mean, I don't think it's the best looking thing I've ever created, but it's something different. Just speeding up here into 800% speed for the time lapse now as I put a wall along a path. So it looks alright. It'll It'll do. Coming along here into the rock, raise the rock up, and there we have it. I think it actually looks a little bit better when I zoom out. And now I just wanted to detail up this area a little bit, get rid of the dirt, some grass, and then some rocks and foliage work. Rocks and foliage work, it is king. And some mossy rocks in here, which, because, like, it sort of almost gives like the algae feel, and it feels right to put them near the water because it adds a bit of life to the rocks, basically. And we feel like, well, I feel like when we have those rocks near water that there should be stuff growing on them. That just feels like the right thing to do. Not the right thing to do, but it feels like it's naturally correct. So I feel like adding it is the right decision. Just moving a few rocks that were encroaching on places they shouldn't be, and now some foliage and bushes around. We still haven't touched inside the exhibit, might I just add, but that's all right. That we'll get to that at the end. A big tree there, but decided I didn't want to block the view. Good old elephant grass. Now we're working inside, but still on rocks, but over here near the building. Again, throwing in those mossy rocks. Another rock cluster over here. Didn't want to go too overboard with it, so just a couple on each side. We've got that beach section where the hippos will exit and enter the water, and I wanted to keep that nice and clear. Just checking out the rocks there, and now finally we will get onto that foliage work. So what I was doing here was I was kind of plotting out some areas where I wanted the hippos to walk, and so the soil had been like trampled away basically, which is another thing I've sort of picked up on from watching some far more successful and far more talented Planet Zoo creators. Throwing in the enrichment items here, but keeping them near the pathing, moving the food over here because the guests want to see the hippos interacting with the enrichment and the food enrichment rather than just eating out of a bowl. Going in with the mud bath, of course. And then finally just a sprinkler. And now it's time, as promised, for the foliage. So again, what I really wanted to do was create some nice ground cover that I could really put all over the exhibit, so different colours and some different bushes and things in here. And then I just took this and I put it everywhere. And it does look a bit samey, I think because just of the yellow foliage, and maybe it's not thick enough, but I also can't really afford to go too thick on the foliage because otherwise my computer will have a hissy fit because it is massively due for an upgrade, particularly on the graphics card. So I'm really not sure how this series will go from that perspective, because at some point my PC is just going to say no thanks, no more rocks, no more bushes, too many assets in this zoo. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. When we get to that point, I'll either start a new zoo or just buy a new computer. Whatever's cheaper. I think starting a new zoo is probably the answer there, but you know. So we're sort of coming towards the end now. We've got the bushes, we've got the rocks in, just putting some dirt around here, hitting play to see everything sort of come together, and finally some lilies and reeds and some underwater grass. But here we have our hippo habitat, featuring 2 underwater viewing sections, a staff and hard shelter combined building, and some different building techniques as I work to develop my Planet Zoo skills. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to drop it a like, and if you want more Planet Zoo content, you'll need to subscribe to the channel. Anyway, guys, thank you all for joining me today as we have been creating our hippo habitat. I hope you have enjoyed. I've been Speedy17, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.